Jutting out of Lake Victoria, Africa's great inland sea, are groups of strangely shaped islands. 400 million years ago, much of Central Africa was covered by a huge shield of granite. Most of it is eroded away now, and these islands are among the last remnants of that slow process. They're some of the oldest and hardest rocks on Earth. The name for these jumbled piles of rounded granite boulders comes from an old Dutch word meaning little heads. They're called kopjes. To the east of Lake Victoria is another inland sea, this one a vast rolling ocean of grass, the Serengeti. Here too there are kopjes, and here too there are islands in a sea of grass. Cloaked in the mist of a rainy season dawn, the Serengeti kopjes look just like their offshore counterparts. Because of the difficulties of reaching them, true islands usually support relatively low numbers of species. Kopjes are more easily colonized, but because they are essentially islands, ecological islands, some of the creatures that inhabit them have become as specialized as any oceanic island dwellers. For them, the surrounding grassland is as isolating and dangerous as a shark-infested sea. Kopjes come in every shape and size. Some are monolithic slabs, others like neat bonsai arrangements. And some appear to be transplants from the shores of Easter Island. The kopjes can be like outdoor art galleries for the work of some primeval Henry Moore. And because this is Africa, there is life everywhere. The most common creature among the Kopjes, living in colonies of up to 75 animals, is the hyrax. Hyrax have very poor control over their body temperatures, and rather like reptiles, they cannot begin the day's activities until thoroughly warmed up by the morning sun. Agama lizards, up to a foot long, share the rocks and the habit of sunbathing. Now their bodies are dark to best absorb the heat. Later in the day, except for the colourful males, they will exactly match the rocks they live on. The best way to warm up is to have the sun on your back and somebody else between you and the cold rocks. Hyrax have a scent gland marked by a patch of pale hair on their back. By clinging close to it, the young probably acquire the scent, making them more recognizable to their mother. After a couple of hours sunbathing, the young at least are ready to play. The adults seldom join in. They're among the most undemonstrative of animals. There are two species on the Kopjes, the gingery 3-kilo rock hyrax and the smaller and greyer bush hyrax. They share the sleeping places in the rocks and split the food supply. The bush hyrax is a good climber, and although its feet are not well adapted, it clambers high into acacia and other trees for the leaves that are its main food. The rock hyrax eat mainly grass, so the two species can live together without competing for food. From its high perch, the bush hyrax can easily spot danger, making it safer for the rock hyrax feeding below. An enemy has been spotted. This is probably the most beautiful of Africa's smaller cats, the solitary and seldom seen caracal. Its magnificent ears that can twist and fold to present various patterns of black, white and gold are used to communicate its mood to other caracals. The caracal hunts for rodents and hyrax among the rocks, but it's also very fond of birds, which it catches with vertical leaps of up to 2 meters. This is so spectacular that trained Indian caracals were once used in contests between Maharajas to see whose cat could knock down the most birds from a flock of doves. There is another predator among the Kopjes that is perhaps even more spectacular than the caracal: the black eagle. Wherever there are rocks and hyrax, there are black eagles. They are the soaring spirit of the Kopjes. This pair is displaying over the huge rock where their kind have nested for perhaps thousands of years. They have just started to rebuild their old nest, losing many of the sticks to the 50-kilometer-an-hour winds that sweep across the plains and through the rocks. The winds are so strong that the eagles are sometimes flying backwards. The finished nest will be up to 2 meters across and 1 meter deep, and may take a month or more to build. Some of the rocks appear to have been whitewashed. These are the communal lavatories of the hyrax, whose urine is very concentrated and leaves thick crystalline deposits down the rocks. In North Africa, the Romans used it as a remedy for kidney and bladder complaints and as an aphrodisiac. They called it hyraceum. In recent times, it was collected and sold in South Africa. They call hyrax dassies, and they marketed the hyraceum under the accurate but less poetic name of dassie pea. Hyrax have up to 4 young at a time, born large and well developed. The female has 4 teats, and at birth the babies claim 1 or more each. From then on, they will suck at those teats only. These 2 youngsters have divided their mother down the middle. This is a male rock hyrax proclaiming his territory. The dominant male on the neighboring kopje answers. Sunbathing attracts a lot of flies. Agama lizards love flies and take great liberties to catch them. Another animal superbly adapted for life on the kopjes is the klipspringer. These small, goat-sized antelopes live in pairs and only venture out from the safety of their islands when forced to search for food in the dry season. Their most striking adaptation to life on the rocks is their hooves. They're rubbery, and the animal stands straight-legged on the very tips for the best possible grip. A klipspringer's hair, too, is remarkable. Tough, springy, and loosely rooted, it makes a good shock absorber should the animal fall against a rock. Each hair is hollow, filled with air, and pointed, rather like the coat of a soft hedgehog. It is a perfect insulator for this very exposed habitat. Unlike other antelopes, the klipspringer is unable to sleek down its springy coat, which explains its rather plump appearance. They mark their territory, sometimes just one large kopje, by rubbing their face glands on twigs and scattering urine with a flutter of the tail. The black eagles changed their minds about the nest site. After weeks of work, they moved about 1 kilometer and have now finished building on this spectacular outcrop. A few days later, an egg is laid. These eagles normally lay 2 eggs, but this is a young adult, perhaps nesting for the first time, and she produced only 1. With a little help from her mate, she will incubate it for 45 days. The eagle's original nest has been taken over by one of Africa's fastest and fiercest little hawks, the lanner falcon. Lanners never build for themselves. They move on to disused eagle or vulture nests. The black eagles only breed every second year and often have one or more alternative sites, so there is usually an unoccupied nest available for the lanners. Rainfall running off the rocks provides a good crop of grass around the base of the kopjes, and when it's seeding, it attracts many birds. Pigeons and doves have a dense cover of thick, soft feathers that come out at the slightest touch. So these birds escaped. They also have very short memories. And for every cat among the pigeons, there is an eagle among the hyrax. The eagle chick is a week old now, and the adults must kill almost every day. Apart from the occasional hare or young klipspringer, black eagles feed almost exclusively on hyrax, and they seem to catch them with ease. They hunt either by making a long, shallow dive from a high lookout rock or by flying low over the islands and trying to drive the hyrax away. If the hyrax stay close to the rocks with their many sheltering cracks, they're relatively safe. In the process of erosion, the boulders split along fault lines. They also shed flakes of rock that have been cracked away by the constant expansion and contraction caused by temperature change. This exfoliation happens on every scale, from tiny flakings of the surface to huge slabs that weigh hundreds of tons. This onion-like peeling of the outer layers, this shedding over millions of years of so much granite dandruff, is what gives the kopjes their smooth and rounded shape, and the cracks provide a safe and extensive habitat for any creatures flat enough to fit into them. The agama can fit into very narrow cracks. This is the more colourful male, proclaiming his presence and territory by bobbing his gaudy head. A neighbouring male replies. No niche is completely safe, and there are predators that can get in. The tiger snake is one. Inside the crack is a colony of bats. To exploit the habitat, this species has developed flattened bodies, and instead of hanging by their hind feet, they scuttle about on all fours. They're called the wrinkle-lipped bat, one of the free-tail bats, for obvious reasons. The tiger snake is not as dangerous as its name and coloration imply. It is a mildly venomous constrictor that feeds mainly on geckos. It is seeking shade, not food. The bats, after some initial excitement, make room for it. One predator that makes raids on the crack dwellers comes in a most unexpected form. The harrier hawk is a chicken-sized bird of prey. Despite a 1-meter wingspan, it has very slow, weak flight. It hunts by searching in cracks and crannies with its extraordinary feet. Its leg joint, the one that looks like a knee, can bend 70 degrees backwards and 30 degrees to either side. It pokes these flexible legs deep into the cracks to try and grab prey. Perhaps the most unlikely creature to have evolved into a flattened, crack-fitting shape is this one, the pancake tortoise. Unlike their rounded relatives, these tortoises are so flat they can be stacked like a pile of books. Their shell is soft. Even small predators can crunch them up like a toasted sandwich. So when danger threatens, they don't pull in their legs and head like most tortoises, but make full speed for the nearest crack. It's a remarkable piece of evolution that works well. In the dry season, when other vegetation dies back, the kopjes are often covered in flowering aloes, a succulent that can grow on almost bare rock. The nectar-filled flowers attract the Mariqua sunbird, whose forehead carries pollen from flower to flower. When the rains come, the kopjes are a mass of flowers that grow in pockets of earth among the rocks. The commonest large tree is the fig, whose fruit attracts many birds. The seeds pass unharmed through them and take root in some unlikely places. With only the nutrients washed out of an occasional baboon dropping, this tiny fig flourishes locked in granite and hundreds of feet from the nearest soil. It survives by sending out an aerial root system that snakes down the rocks, finding nourishment in cracks along the way until it finally reaches the earth. Once into soil, the roots thicken and start to envelop the rocks, splitting them and filling the cracks with leaves, with soil, then more roots, until hundreds of years later, tree and rock are locked in a serpentine embrace. The other common tree on the Kopjes is a large succulent, the candelabra euphorbia. Its millions of tiny flowers attract large numbers of insects. It is pollinated mainly by flies, and where there are flies, the agamas will find them, even 10 meters up. When the flowers turn to fruit, the euphorbia fills with beautiful birds. Starlings like the violet-backed and the blue-eared glossy, and fishers' lovebirds. The eagle chick is a month old and sits on the nest surrounded by surplus hyrax. The uneaten food attracts flies, and where there are flies, the agamas do a good job keeping the nest free of maggots that would otherwise thrive in the scraps of meat. A bird like the black eagle has no need to hide its nest from predators, but many smaller species have to conceal their eggs or young, and this bird uses its own beautifully camouflaged body. It's hard to see at first, but this is a freckled nightjar. The surface temperature on the rocks can reach more than 60 degrees centigrade, but the nightjar sits tight, the giveaway gleam of its eyes hidden behind slitted lids. Only when it flies does it really become visible. And then the eggs, too, are plain to see. Another bird solves the concealment problem by reversing this method. The eggs of the three-banded plover are as superbly camouflaged as the nightjar's body, but the bird itself is conspicuous. She conceals her eggs by walking off and leaving them. The eagle chick is 2 months old. It squirts its droppings clear of the nest, making a mark that's visible for miles. It also throws off well-picked hyrax bones and skulls. Below the nest that has been used by countless generations of eagles is a charnel house of hyrax remains. Soon after dark, a white-tailed mongoose emerges from its den among the rocks and visits the boneyard in search of the day's windfalls. While the eagles are nesting, their scraps will form a welcome addition to its main diet of beetles. At the entrance to a nearby cave is another collection of bones that appear to be the work of some major predator. A closer examination reveals that all the bones are etched with characteristic rodent tooth marks. But what rodent could drag around bones of this size? Only one, the porcupine. Porcupines probably need plenty of calcium to grow their quills, which they constantly shed and regrow like hair. Whatever the reason, they commonly drag large bones back and dump them at the entrance to their cave. These natural water-worn caves are a common feature of Kopjes, and some of them are very large. The harrier hawk visits a colony of swifts in the mouth of this cave, but the birds are not nesting, and there are no eggs or young to be had. This cave, like most, has been used by man. Paintings of Maasai shield patterns are recent, but there are markings in some caves that are over 2,000 years old. Some of mankind's oldest remains have been uncovered very close by, so there is every reason to believe that opportunistic creatures like our forebears may have sheltered among the Kopjes millions of years ago. On some Kopjes, usually in a spot with a good view, are parallel rows of shallow indentations in the rock. These are for playing the board game of bow, in which pebbles are moved from hole to hole in a game still played in Africa today. And on this rock, there is even a waist-high bow game. The most haunting evidence of early man on the Kopjes is the deeply pitted boulders called rock gongs. The granite is so hard that when a freestanding slab is struck with a stone, it resonates like a bell. Some rocks have been struck so often over so many millennia that their faces are pocked with deep indentations. Used at first for communication between the islands, these gongs may have been mankind's first musical instruments. Leopards are among the most beautiful Kopje dwellers. This female is in season. She climbs down to meet her mate. She will have her cubs in a cave among the rocks. Lions too hide their tiny cubs in the Kopjes sheltering caves. The neighboring pride has moved in and would possibly even kill the cubs, but the mother can easily defend the small entrance to the cave. They soon get bored and settle down to sunbathe. Like the other animals, lions attract flies, and by now we all know what that means. At about 3 months, the young eagle leaves the nest. The parents continue to feed it for another 3 to 4 months. During this period, they must kill at least twice a day. The hyrax is taken to a convenient rock, and the chick comes to collect it. Soon it will be on its own. It takes 6 months for a black eagle to reach this size. It took millions of years for it to reach this stage of perfection. The rocks have seen it all. This ancient granite has seen not just the everyday lives of these creatures, but their very evolution. By providing a habitat where animals could evolve in relative isolation, the islands in a sea of grass have added to the variety of Africa's complex animal life. The Kopjes have not only nourished this variety of beasts, they've also given shelter for millennia to our own species. And perhaps the ringing granite hardness of these age-old rocks even gave us that which makes us so joyously different from other creatures. Perhaps they gave us music.